Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about all of the books I read in February, which it turns out was quite a lot. I didn't realize that before I started making my list, so I was surprised at how many I got through, as well as the books that I'm looking forward to in March. February was a month of highs and lows, including my favorite book of 2023 so far, a book that rocked my world. One of those books that you just cannot stop thinking about. It still haunts me. I'm probably going to devote a whole video to it, but I'll just give you a recap. But let's dive right into the books now. First off is Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. That one got its own video actually, which I will link one of these places. A sapphic romance, really funny, contemporary, and I loved it. I gave it this many stars. Next was Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert, which I loved. This was the second in the Brown Sisters series, this one featuring Dani and the most amazing cinnamon roll Zafir. This was like a fake dating leads to real dating relationship thing, and I loved it. I was just blown away by these two. 5 stars. Next was Off the Map by Trisha Dollar. This was an audiobook that I read. Romped through Ireland kind of thing. The narrator did a great job with the accents, including Eamon, who was swoon-worthy extraordinaire. Do not be fooled by this cutesy cover. This got very steamy, very fast, and they were in bed by the 11% mark. That's right, 11%. I loved the romance, but the ailing parent subplot really was kind of a downer, making it a 3.5 stars in the end. Next, I read The Spinster and the Rake by Eva Devon. I had many problems with this book, and I'm not sure if the biggest one was the narrator, who I did not like, but he's not a rake, she's not a spinster, and I just couldn't get into it with these two. I'm even having a hard time remembering most of this story. There was too much internal dialogue and not enough chemistry. 2 stars. Next, I read Georgie All Along, which also has its own video. I loved this book. My second favorite book of the whole month. Totally rocked my world. Kate Claiborne has my heart. She knows how to write contemporary romance that just gets me right in the feels every time. And her heroes are perfection. 5 stars. Next was Luck and Last Resorts, which I read as an audiobook, and I kind of regret it because I absolutely hated the voice of the heroine, but I wasn't sure if it was because I didn't like her voice as the narrator or if I just really didn't like this heroine who does not deserve this hero. He has been pining for her for 10 years, and he's gorgeous and perfect and wonderful, and she just doesn't deserve to tie his shoelaces. This is the second book in the series, and the good news is it could be read as a standalone. The bad news is, would you want to though? I don't know. This was 2 stars for me. Next up was Her Lessons in Persuasion. I am like blushing even thinking about this book because Bram, I'm sorry, is that like the cutest hero name? Bram is one of those heroes that just really works like a charm. He's a virgin, which I always love, and they're back and forth bickering and arguing. Their banter was so fantastic, and the fact that she's kind of bossy was really wonderful as well. It really worked here. What did I do? What did I do? The whole setup for this series, which is a historical book club full of sexy orphaned heroes. I can't even get the words out. They're sexy orphan heroes. They have a book club together and they start arguing, and that often leads to fisticuffs. I mean, could you write a more perfect setup for an entire romance series? I don't know. I don't think it's been done. I'm just saying that. This was medium spice level, open door, slow burn. All in all, I loved it. I loved the narrator, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the series. 5 stars for Bram and his virginity. Next, I tried to read Text Appeal. I limped through it. I was really excited about the story because I loved the premise of a lady starting to do phone sex work as a side hustle. I thought it was like really clever. This was supposed to be friends to lovers, but it ended up feeling like girls' best friends, narcissistic problems interwoven with the main characters. I couldn't get the chemistry between these two. I didn't understand where it was going. Didn't seem like it went anywhere. 2 stars, unfortunately. Next, I read To Best A Marquess, which is kind of a mouthful. I normally don't like friends to lovers, but this had like enough angst and years between them getting back together that you could really feel the love between these two. It was beautifully written. Crazy stuff happens in this book. I'm not going to give away any plot points, but there's a lot of things happening in the plot, and there's kind of like sex lessons involved. There's a bathtub scene, which was so sexy. It was like the scene from Ghost, but in a bathtub and sexier. Your fetish is like being pampered by a really sexy engineer and treated like a princess. This might be the book for you. Unfortunately, the last half of this book kind of dragged, and I didn't like the magical resolution of everything, and I also didn't like her proposing to him. No ma'am, doesn't work for me. Next, I listened to Infamous, which was a fantastic audiobook. I love this narrator. This was a really sweet coming-of-age sapphic romance. My only problem with this book was that I really loved the villain. The villain is so delicious in this book that I just like wanted him to be the hero because I had a giant crush on him. But unfortunately, he was not the good guy in this book. Wah wah. It was really cute. It was a kissing book, so it's great for teenagers and kind of like new adult. All in all, I really enjoyed it. 3 stars. Next, I read a book called When Good Earls Go Bad. Now, this book is a text mark. I'm so flustered remembering this book. This book is a textbook case of do not judge a book by its cover, because I don't know what is going on with this cover. It's like some kind of Photoshop gone horribly wrong. Do not think about the cover. Do not look at the cover, because hidden within this really crazy cover is the sexiest, most romantic book. It was really great. It's not my favorite of the month, but it was way up there. You know by now that virgin heroes are my catnip. This book was like walking into a fully stocked PetSmart and just rolling around in catnip. He is a grumpy Scottish Earl who needs a housekeeper. She runs an employment agency and she has to be the emergency housekeeper. Whoops! Annabelle is the perfect chaos agent. She's like Amelia Bedelia, all grown up and in a historical romance. Matthew is perfection. And you would think this would be enemies to lovers, but there's this softness she has that he has not felt at any other time in his life. Like she's caring for him and no one's ever cared for him before. So it's pretty much like insta-love. And it gets so swoony, romantic, tender, and then incredibly hot because of the forced proximity, and they're not supposed to be together. Whoa! Oh my gosh. He was just overwhelmed by his feelings. They were crazy in love. I give this 5 stars. I wish I could give it 500 stars. It was really great. Next, I read In Bed with the Devil by Lorraine Heath. And me and Lorraine Heath have like a love, not love relationship. I don't know. Sometimes I really like her books. Sometimes I really don't. This is one of those cases where I just went, I guess it was okay. I didn't like the narrator. All of her voices kind of glommed together. And I love a good broken hero. But the fact that Lucian is about to marry another woman for like 90% of this book got really old. It got old way earlier along than 90% through this book. I also feel like it's really hard to pull off, let's just do it this once to get it out of our systems in a historical. In a contemporary, yes, makes sense. But in a historical, you're like, would they really though? Would that really happen though? Would that really occur to anybody though? I don't know. I was having a hard time with it, and I wanted to love Lucian because a guy that threatens to kiss you on the bottom as punishment, come on, you minx. Unfortunately, I couldn't love it, so 3 stars. All right, we are at my 3rd favorite book of the month. Hear me out. Close your eyes. Medieval virgin executioner who collects helpless animals, orphaned animals, and is terrified of holding a baby because he feels like he might hurt it because he's called the Horseman of Death. I mean, Come on. Come on. I loved Baz. Baz? I loved him so much, and he was such an amazing hero.
I got so excited I forgot the name of the book. Highland Beast.
This gentle giant had my heart for the whole book, and Shauna is the perfect heroine for I'm so flustered. She's the perfect heroine for him because she's a midwife, she brings life, he brings death, and she teaches him through the events of the story and through the book that he is worthy of love, that he is not the cold-blooded killer that he's been raised to be from childhood, and teaches him to accept love into his heart and shows him that he's a worthwhile individual. And it was a great book. There's lots of I don't know if you can call it swashbuckling if they're on land. There's a lot of plot going on in this book. There's things happening, and it felt kind of bigger than life in that regard. There's a big cast of characters. I think this is the 4th in the series. I haven't read any of the other books, so it could totally be a standalone. But I gave it 5 stars because he's an executioner who just wants love. Next, I listened to Along Came a Lady, which was kind of supposed to be a, oh God, what's the Pygmalion story. Anyway, I'll think of it and I'll put it in text here. It's supposed to be about that. My Fair Lady. It's kind of like a My Fair Lady retelling. But you had me at rugged, grumpy coal miner. That's all you needed to say. You didn't need to say anything else. It was like, I'm ready, I'm in. This book got really steamy out of nowhere. He's grumbling that he has to help her, and then suddenly he's coaxing her slipper off and caressing her insole, and I was like, what happened here? But then it was then I knew that I was a goner. I was really in love with this book already. When he was not busy tending to her injuries and caressing her instep and pushing her up against the wall and kissing her, he was baking her the perfect strawberry tart. And I'm getting so excited I'm dropping my notes. And calling her princess teasingly. I mean, perfect hero. My only gripe with this book was why in the heck his dad even wanted him in his life. He's the illegitimate son of a duke. And the Duke was like, oh my God, I need to know my illegitimate coal miner son. And I need to hire a governess for my 31-year-old illegitimate coal miner son. I was like, what? This plot was too bonkers and it didn't make any sense, but I didn't care. 5 stars. Next, I read Project Duchess, which I found at the 25-cent sale at my library. I have never been happier. Have you ever read a book and you just read it based on the cover alone? This cover is gorgeous. I mean, look at it. They're waltzing. It's just a gorgeous painting. I love it. I was swept away. Gray is a very rascally, reckless hero. And they do some really reckless things in this book that made me scratch my head. Are they really doing this in the ballroom where anyone could walk in? They were acting really crazy in this book, but they managed to pull it off. Sabrina Jeffries writes very hot love scenes, so if you are looking for a clean romance or you are a pearl clutcher, this one will not make you happy. There is a murder mystery in this book that does not get resolved. It is part of the whole series, so if you do not like cliffhangers, be warned. All in all, it did what a historical romance needs to do. He's a feisty, reckless rake. She's like, oh, that sassy man, blast and double blast him, and then they do lots of kissing, and there's a little bit of a plot. Works for me. 3.5 stars. Next, I read When in Rome, which is a contemporary that is about a celebrity singer, and she runs off to a small town. She's gonna reenact Rowan Holiday with Audrey Hepburn in her own way, and she falls for the local grumpy baker when she crashes into his front yard. Now, I loved the setup, and I loved the hero Noah, who is the grumpy baker. The only thing that started to feel really uncanny valley to me about this was that he's a baker. He's built like a lumberjack. He loves flowers, and when he's not visiting his grandma every week and baking pies, he's in vintage pajamas and reading lots of books. So it just sort of felt like you can't just take all of the characteristics that are unrealistic that you would love to have in a man and just kind of mush them into one character. It just seemed really over the top and unbelievable. This is also a super, super slow burn. They do not kiss until 72% into the book, and it is basically fade to black. So if that's not your cup of tea, probably won't do it for you. I loved Noah. I wanted the grumpy caveman baker for the whole book, but he wasn't enough to revive it for me, so 2 stars. And finally, drum roll, my favorite book of February and 2023 all together so far is The Prospectors Only Prospect. Dani Collins. This book, I have goosebumps right now. Okay? I was not expecting this book to break me and then remold me a better woman, but it did. It was so good. It's going to get its own video, but I'm going to give you a little recap here because I want you to read this book. Okay, imagine this. Kit McBride is a grumpy widowed prospector. If you've not read Kit McBride yet, what if there was a grumpy widowed prospector all alone in the wilds and he needs a bride? And along comes a mail order bride. There's a little bit of a misunderstanding there. She agrees to go for it, and she gets thrown into this life in the wilds with all these men. She's the lady in the camp. She's trying to take care of his kids. They fall so hopelessly in love. This book had so much sexual tension, so much chemistry. It was so funny. It was so poignant because of the little kids. I loved every character in this book. I loved Marigold as much as I loved Virgil, which is rare. Usually the heroines kind of like have something about them that drives me up a wall. Marigold was perfect for Virgil. She gave as good as she got. And there is a scene at the end of this book that made me sob uncontrollably. I was a wreck. I loved it. It was glorious. There aren't even enough stars. 5 stars? I don't know. Go higher than that. 11 stars? That's how much I loved this book. So do yourself a favor and read The Prospectors Only Prospect. You will not be disappointed. I want Dani Collins to write more historical Westerns. Please, please, please. I want to know about all of these characters in this book. Now we come to March reads. What are you reading in March? I am going to be reading the new Lorraine Heath. Yes, I know, I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm going to really like this one. I'm convincing myself now. I'm going to love it. I want to read the new Vivian Lorette, who I love, and the new Julianne Long, which is part of the Palace of Rogues series. Now, I love, love, love Julianne Long, and I love this series, which has one of my favorite books of all time, Lady Daring Takes a Lover, which is a fantastic start. And the premise is crazy. I can't even tell you, because when you read about how the heroine knows who her best friend is in this book, how the heroine and her best friend meet, totally bonkers setup. You're gonna love it. So the new Julianne Long installment in that series is coming. The Grand Palace on the Thames. I love all those characters. And I'm looking forward to reading The Wolf and the Wildflower on Kindle Unlimited. I love her, and it's kind of like a Tarzan retelling where he is like the son of a duke who's been lost in the wilderness, and she has been forced to dress like a man her whole life because her mom didn't want her dad to know that she was actually a girl. So she's been like cross-dressing her whole life, and he can tell that she's really a girl because he can smell her. I mean, you gotta love this book. I can't wait to read it. So that's what I'm looking forward to reading in March. Let me know in the comments below what you're reading. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.